Really curious. Don't worry, I won't do the hands up, hands down stuff. But uh, anyone here attended Google I/O this year? Perfect. That's my audience. So today I'm going to talk about Android QUI, which you might not know because of the title and the abstract, because I failed to send to organizers after Google I/O. These speakers really give hard time to them. So when you're leaving, just find them, hug them, hang, and do whatever. Um, so this talk is about changes coming with Android Q, and this is basically 3 or 4 talks combined into one. So I won't go into details on some topics, and I'll go fast on some, but I have a so don't worry about taking photos or notes. I have a slide at the very end which gives you links to all the talks, all the dev bytes, and everything you can find in the slides. So what's new with Android QUI, or what's Q with Android UI? Okay, it's a bad joke. So what is QUI and what's changing, what's coming? Let's talk a little bit about that. First, the first thing I'll talk about is gestural navigation. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. By the way, everything I'm going to talk about is currently in Android Q beta. So if you go ahead and install Q beta on your phone, you can try it yourself, give us feedback, tell us what you think, and so on. So we'll start with gestural navigation with edge-to-edge display. I'll talk about dark foldables, bubbles, which is copy, and Jetpack Compose, which I didn't add to this slide. So let's start with gestural navigation. So you may have seen gestures and gestural navigation on some of our partner devices. And with Android Q, we wanted to step in and be opinionated about how the gestures should work. So this is how the current gestures work. There are 2 different main gestures. One is swiping from the bottom, which takes you to the home screen. If you swipe it from button and hold it there, then you see the recent apps. And the second gesture is swiping inwards from either left or right edge of the screen, which takes you back. Of course, I mean, this is relatively easy. Ideally, you don't need to do much, but some controls have some issues with current gestures because they basically fall into the same gesture zone. So with Android Q and on, we will still have 3-button navigation mode on every device, and gestural navigation will be offered out of the box. So why we are doing this? Basically, we've seen every device manufacturer is building amazing screens, which are using basically the whole front edge of the device. And they each pick a different model. Some use the bottom bar and use back and going home from the bottom. Some use the side. So everyone has different opinions, which creates some problems for the app developers because basically some of the app controls fall in that gesture zones, and you need to handle them. So we decided to step in and unify the gestures so that the app developers will have less pain. So what do you need to do to make your app navigation ready? First, you need to implement edge-to-edge UI, which I'm going to talk about in detail. Then leverage the insets for a better UI experience. And finally, override the system gestures if you need to. Let's take a look at it. First, what's edge-to-edge? This is how an Android app currently looks like. We have the bottom navigation bar, then the top system bar, and everything in between is for the apps. So this is basically something like this. The whole yellow area is for the app. Instead, we want to, so at the bottom we have the navigation bar, but instead we want to get rid of it and let that area available for the app. To do that, what we basically do is we create a transparent navbar which automatically updates its color depending on the content drawn behind it, and let your app use that full screen experience. When the user scrolls, the bottom bar will change the color and your content will scroll behind it. So this behavior is strongly recommended for Q. So if your app is targeting Android Q, we strongly suggest you implement this. And it's optional, but still recommended to implement it before Q, because basically you are giving more screen real estate, a free almost half-inch screen update to every phone your app is running on. Secondly, we have the top system bar, which again occupies some space. And again, we want it to be disappear and let your app be visible instead. So again, what we do is basically we create a transparent system bar, status bar, which you can draw your app behind it. So every time the user uses your app, your content will be laid below the system bar. So as a summary, drawing behind the status bar is also recommended if you are targeting Q, and still optional if you're targeting before Q. And with this, you can basically use the whole screen for your app. And in order to do that, the first thing you need to do is implementing edge-to-edge experience in your app. What edge-to-edge is, basically converting the system bar and the navigation bar to transparent and laying your app under it. And the system will help you to do this. So how we do this is from Q and onwards, we will basically look at what's the content behind this navigation bar and decide on what color it needs to change to. If I replay this animation, you will see the navigation bar will change its colors depending on the content behind it. And if you're targeting and running on a device before Q, the system will still help you. You just need to put a transparent bar, and you can decide on which colors to show, but basically the system will help you to do that. And going immersive, once again, you need to change the system bar colors, request to be laid out full screen. And if there are any overlaps with the system UI areas, you need to get rid of that. To start with, you need to add these properties to your themes, which will basically request a transparent navigation bar. And if you're using pre-Q, you will ask for appropriate translucent color. Then you need to set several flags. These basically help you to, this basically asks the system to lay your app edge to edge, as if the system and as if the navigation bar doesn't exist. But we also optionally ask you to lay behind the system bar. So the third parameter will help, the flag will help you paint your app under the system bar. Let's talk about insets. One issue is the moment you draw your app behind the navigation and system bars, some of your controls, either clickable or draggable, will not work because there is a layer on top of them. So in order to fix that, we have a new API which gives you the values of what are the current system and navigation bar insets are. So to start with, using the system window, you can get the insets for the system bar and the navigation bar. Then you can move your clickable or draggable objects according to that. For example, in this example, we have a fab button, and it's really going into the navigation bar, which you most of the time want to put over 16 depths. The current API will give you the current insets for the navigation bar, and you can easily arrange where your controls need to be placed. Similarly, if your user is using the 3-button experience, you can get the insets for the current bar and still place your controls according to that. Another interesting thing is with the system gestures on the bottom and the sides, we basically have another set of areas which may trigger some other stuff than your controls should, such as going back or going home. And this is more kind of tricky, especially if you have draggables and other controls which require a swipe action, specifically the horizontal one. So in order to fix that, again, we have another API called System Gesture Insets, which will give you the values for the side and bottom insets. One thing to be careful is there is a mandatory system gesture, which is the bottom part, which takes the user to the home. This is like a escape from your app. You cannot override this because this is a fail-safe escape, which the user can exit your app and go back to home. So with these 3 APIs, you can lay out your controls according to be in the safe zones and don't trigger a system gesture. Still, some of the controls may need to be placed near the gesture zones, such as this one. This is an image, and you have draggable controls on each corner. And guess what? They're all falling into the back zone. So whenever the user wants to drag and crop the image, they're basically triggering a back action, which is not something you want. So in order to make this work, we have a new API in Android Q. So with this, what you need to do is basically create rectangles which you want to opt out from the back behavior, and then send those list of rectangles to set system gesture exclusion recs API. But something you need to be careful while using this API is you don't want to opt out the whole edge, either left or right edge of the screen. This will create a non-consistent behavior with other apps and the system. So this won't be a very good use case. Once you send the recs which you want to exclude from the gesture exclusion areas, you need to call the set system gesture exclusion recs in either on layout or on draw of your view. Some common scenarios. So if you have a scrolling view, the content will be drawn behind the system and navigation bars. So what you want to do is basically make sure when the user reaches the end of the list, you still show everything on top of the navigation bar so that the user can still interact with the items. And a common way to achieve this is by using padding. Um, by using the system window inset API, you can get the current insets for that device and update your padding values according to that. One thing you need to be aware is when using that, you need to use the clip to padding parameter so that the items will be still drawn within the parent's padding. Another tricky use case is navigation drawers. Don't worry, you don't need to opt out the whole edge to make them work. We already made it work for you. You just need to update your dependencies to 1.1 alpha and build against Q. And another problematic scenario, especially a big one since the bottom gesture is exits your app, is bottom sheets. This is a common pattern used in most apps. So what we recommend in this one is basically trying to stay away from the gesture zone by shifting your content. Oh, this is where what happens when the user tries to swipe from the bottom to open your bottom sheet, but basically exits your app. So instead, we want you to check the insets and shift the content so that the user can have some draggable content and instead of exiting the app, can drag the sheet. And to do that, again, you can use this get system gesture insets. If my clicker worked, I could have highlighted that, but you can use the get system gesture insets to get the current inset value added to your current height and create a new, better draggable sheet for your users. And if you're using app compat, don't worry, we also released the Android X for 1.2.0 alpha with the compat library. Sure. The code samples on my slides are all Kotlin, but Java still works. I mean, this one. So everything on my slides are Kotlin, but these APIs all work in Java. It's like something we recently do since we go Kotlin first on Android. I'm not sure if, I mean, each API has some samples on the website, which again, I'll give you at the end of the talk. Yes, there are all samples on the websites, but I'm not sure if this specific app is open source. So one thing you cannot do here is you cannot get on top of the bottom gesture area because that's reserved for the system. And there's no way to override it. If you override it, you basically stop the user to exit your app, which is not something we or you want, because that's basically, yes. Not specifically about license, but it's basically a broken experience in terms of the user. So for the bottom sheet, you cannot do that, but you can shift your draggable part on top of the gesture zone.
How it will work in case of kiosk apps when you have like device owner logs single app to be only available
I don't think there's a particular case for the kiosk apps because on the kiosks you don't need the gestures, and we are not removing the 3-button navigation from Android. It will be there, so you can still continue using the standard Android way on your kiosks. Any other questions? By the way, I don't have perfect sight, so just shoot out if you have any questions, and let's do it interactive. So once again, I know this is a Java user group. I'm a Java guy too, don't worry, I lost all my hair coding Java, but my samples are in Kotlin, and you can find the counter samples in Java on our website. If you don't, ping me and I'll write you the Java sample. So where did I left? Next, other problematic components are carousels, view pagers, basically anything going from one edge to other edge and needs horizontal scrolling. So we definitely don't want you to exclude the edges on these components. User will get used to where to drag these components. If the component is not too big and not occupying too much space on the screen, you can still use the gesture exclusion zones, but in general, using gesture exclusion zones in carousels or other horizontal swipeable components are not recommended. So to sum up the gestural navigation and edge-to-edge UI, the current 3-button navigation is not going away, but we are trying to make use of the full screen experience with the new gesture nav. We are expecting you to implement it and update your dependencies to the latest ones. And hopefully you don't need to do much custom coding to fix issues, but you still have the gesture exclusion APIs and the gesture insets, which you can easily rearrange your UI according to issues you face. Next, the dark theme or dark theme. So why we want the dark theme? It's obviously lighting up less pixels, especially on screens like OLED, really consumes a lot of battery. Plus, it gives a better contrast and helps with the accessibility issues. So with Q, dark theme is a system-wide setting, so the users can go into the system and change the theme. And for the apps, it doesn't come by default. So if the user changes the theme, the top app changed to a dark theme, but the Google Drive app on the bottom has not. By the way, I think today Google Drive updated the app, but we need to check. So you definitely want to make your users happy and not to disappoint them. So to make the move easier, oh, okay, this is time for me to dance. So they warned me about this. We'll have the projector ready in 1 minute. So I can answer some questions meanwhile. I thought they changed shifts at 7. Sure. You said fuchsia? I'm in the Android team and have no visibility on fuchsia. We're friends. My wife works in Flutter. I work on Android. That's fine. other questions while we are waiting the projector? So historically, I've been a Java programmer. I'm a Java champion. I'm organizing the Java user group in Silicon Valley. But I can't say Kotlin and Java is so different. I mean, they're getting more different with coroutines and everything, but it wasn't that bad. I mean, when I joined the team, I was thinking like, okay, maybe I take 1 or 2 weeks off. I just start reading. I'm good with picking languages, I guess, but still, I was thinking of keeping few weeks, reading books and stuff. Instead, I just started writing the code because IntelliJ really helps. If you just paste the Java code, it translates into Kotlin. Of course, that's like a Java-ish Kotlin, but still teaches you how things work. Another thing you can do is, which I used heavily at the time, when I wrote something in Kotlin, I got the bytecode and decompile it to Java to see what it refers to. Then you see, oh, they're doing this by using a embedded library or some utilities. It's not like JVM magic, which I wasn't aware. So tooling really helps, but I can still recommend some books. Let's do it after the talk. I can tell you more in detail. I tried few and they're all different, so it may depend on what you're looking for. That's why. So going back to dark mode. So in order to make your transition easier, we are introducing something called force dark. Not anything about Star Wars. So force dark basically automatically converts your app to dark theme by finding the right colors, even inspecting bitmaps and determine whether they need to be converted or not. And in order to do that, all you need to do is just add one line to your theme and we'll figure it out how to convert your app to dark theme. This is not opt-in by default. So if you want to support dark theme, this is the least you need to do. You need to add this to your theme. Without this, your app will not get affected and won't turn into dark theme. Sure?
Is there any chance for this behavior to be backwards compatible via some like Android X libraries for all the API versions?
For the dark theme?
Yeah.
Well, yes. If you add the minimal amount of work, then it will be. But without it, we are not opting it by default. And I'll talk more about how to handle it before Q. So we still recommend you to use custom attributes and custom colors. We'll have some tools to help you with that, but we are trying to do our best with helping you with the force dark. Still, I mean, it's not very visible on this projector, but for example, on the custom one, the top bar is kind of lighter, so it can give a better separation between the list and the tabs. So still working on custom colors and having full control over the color palette you're using can be much better. Still, you have an easy path for the migrate. And we have new design guidelines for dark theme in the material website. We also describe how to go dark. Also have some guidance over accessibility and also helping you how to choose the right color palette for the dark. Still, your app might need to control which theme it needs to be in. For example, if you have an ebook reader and you know your user is using your app always before going to sleep and wants to use the dark mode, you can use the in-app setting for overriding the system theme. So with QN onwards, you will have light, dark, and system defaults. If you are targeting for PN before, the system-wide setting is basically corresponds to battery saver. So once again, you need to define your color palette and use the day-night modes to support in-app theme overriding. Let me talk a bit more about Force Dark. So once again, with Force Dark, we kind of try to figure out the right colors and try to, oh, the colors look way different here. So never mind. So we try our best to figure out which colors your app should be in the dark theme. Still, as I mentioned, you may want to, you most likely want to have the full control over the colors your app is using. So you don't probably see anything, but instead of the white vertical lines, you can have gray and better matching colors for your app. So again, to summarize, we expect all the apps to have a dark theme. In order to help you, we have the Force Dark. Make sure you update your app compat and material design components to the latest version. And after moving to Force Dark, try to attribute all your theme with the colors. So next, foldables. Before foldables, does anyone have any questions so far? Cool, we're almost halfway. So foldables. Later last year, I guess, in the Android Dev Summit, we announced our support for foldables. So Android is ready and supports foldables. If you follow best practices, your app should just work. And with the new API and new guidance, you can even make use of the flexible displays even more. So right now there are two different types of displays. One is the fold-in, which is something like the shown here. With the fold-ins, basically you have a large foldable screen, but when you fold it, there is a secondary non-flexible screen on the outside of the device. This is basically used for quick actions and when the user doesn't want to open extend the flexible display. The other option is fold out, which basically folds out the flexible screen and lets half of the screen work as a quick action screen. Some UX considerations you need to pay attention while building for those devices are when they're unfolded, these are amazing large devices. They have great 7 or 8-inch displays. So they're great for gaming, watching videos, productivity, or creating content. So basically, you need to take advantage of the full display. When they're folded, there's a single smaller display, which is intended to be used single-handedly and take quick actions. And another way the user can use this device is multitasking. They can basically have 2 apps running side by side, which will be roughly about 18 to 90 ratios, and they can multitask. In order to ability to fold, unfold without losing the user state, you need to make sure you handle configuration changes, because every time the user folds the device, basically your window, your app changes the configuration. It's not very different than moving your app from horizontal to vertical or the other way. And even if you don't support the full screen, you still need to manage configuration changes because the user can decide to use your app horizontally or vertically. So you need to take care of forms or the last position in the scroll views or view pages and so on. So the name may not be really mean what it intends to. Basically, this is called Android resizable activity, but setting this to false doesn't mean activity will never needs to be resized. Because whenever the device changes orientation, you still need to handle resizing. But we still wanted to make apps work out of the box on those devices. So we are introducing the compat mode, which will basically put the app in a letterbox mode and run it in the middle of the screen in a compatibility mode. So with this, your app will be scaled down, letterboxed, and won't have a configuration change. So should be work as it is designed. And with that, the final changes, multi-window. With foldable and also Chrome OS devices, which have larger screen, the user can use multiple activities, multiple apps at the same time. Previously, what we were doing was only one app was active. So all other apps put on paused state, and one app receives the on resume. There's a small change with that because we want users to be able to multitask. So with Android Q, every visible activity will be on resume state, unless there is another transparent activity on top of them, or there's a picture-in-picture mode app running on top of it. And for that, so one thing is there's no visual indication which one is active. But still, there are some resources which one app might be reserved and the other apps might not be able to use, such as camera. So if there are multiple apps visible on the screen, but only one will be able to use the camera. In such state, the current active app will get the reserved resource, and others will be still on resume state, but there's a new life cycle which basically tells your app is really running on top of the others, and now you can get the shared resource from the other app and start using it. Finally, with multiple apps on single screen, we are expecting more support on drag and drop. This is something developers need to handle, and hopefully drag and drop support for text and images will help multiple apps running side by side more efficiently. Next API is Bubbles. This is an interesting one because basically currently there is no official API for Bubbles, but I'm pretty sure you've all seen chat ads on Messenger or other apps using this API. And this is funny because even though there is no official API for that, most apps implemented this in a non-standard way and introduced their own flow. So this has some issues because it's not something like an official API. Bubbles or the system alert windows can go on top of each other, or the keyboard, or the system bars. So in order to avoid that, we are trying to get rid of the system alert window, which is actually not a very nice permission. It gives the app to read anything on your screen, and they can put the UI anywhere on the screen, uh, which is again something that you might want to do. So what we did was we thought about how bubbles would work best. Basically, bubbles are notifications with higher priority. So we built the Bubbles API on top of the notification API. Basically, any notification, you can add a bubble metadata through the bubble metadata builder. You add your icon and an intent with the bubble activity shown here. So this bubble activity will be drawn on top of the home screen to show what you want to do. And in order to make an activity be able to paint itself on top of the home screen, you need to add this properties to your XML manifest file. Finally, the Jetpack Compose. So this is not really part of the Android Q APIs. This is something new, but it's still kind of related to UI, so I wanted to hit it at the end of the talk. So with the Jetpack Compose, first we thought of Android is not that new. It has been a decade where the whole UI and framework has been designed. And when Android was designed, we had different goals, and we were trying to solve different issues. Funny enough, at the time, XML was declarative UI, which is not considered as declarative UI today. So we thought of what's wrong with the current, what are people not happy with the current UI toolkit, and come up with some ideas. So first, we wanted to unbundle the UI toolkit from the platform so that any device can use the new UI widgets. And we also take a look at the popular frameworks which use more reactive style programming. And another issue is the current way to build UIs is a bit complicated. You need to write your XML, then do the find by UI IDs, and then use Java code to manipulate the UI or interact with the UI. Why can't we just do something like this? I mean, with Kotlin, we get rid of the boilerplate of Java. We don't need to write system.out.println anymore, but we still do the UI in the old way. So instead, we are doing something new. So with Jetpack Compose, we have functions which can produce composables. I'll talk about this in more detail, but basically what we want to do is, just like getting rid of the system.out.println, why can't we just invoke this method, which will create a text widget and place it on the screen? So in order to do that, we have a new composable annotation, which will annotate your functions, and those functions will be, by using the Kotlin plugin for the Jetpack Compose, your functions will be tied to UI. So this is a easier way to understand how the data will be taken as an input, which is the name here, and how the UI hierarchy will be invoked, which is a text box here. So when we run this, we will get a UI with minimal amount of code. So what is Compose? It's a new set of Jetpack UI widgets. It works with a Kotlin compiler plugin. I suspect most of you would guess when seeing the annotation. It's basically an annotation processor which goes into your code, understands how and where you compose the UI and generate the UI for you. It's fully compatible with the current UI widgets and app, but it's still very, very early stage and experimental. The reason we wanted to open source this to Android open source project is, although it's in a very early stage, to gather feedback from you and do it in the right way from the beginning. And how it works is, this is basically an activity. As you can see, there is no new extents or anything. We are just using the app compat activity. And on create, we set our content and call a function. This function is, however, special. It's annotated with composable, which tells the Kotlin compiler that this is a UI widget. And then this function produces a text widget with the given input, and the compiler will, the Kotlin compiler will know how to build the UI. So if we go back and think about how we build the app now, with Kotlin, we have the data classes, which makes things way easier. We don't need to write the getters, setters, or generate them. And we can have our data class. Then what we need to do is create a view model for it, which will use live data to bind those objects to our UI. What if instead we can just annotate our data class with model and then write a composable function which will just use our annotated data class. What's interesting here is because the compiler knows our data class is annotated with model, it creates the observers automatically. So this part of the UI will be aware of any change happening in your data class. And if you're interested in more, you can go ahead and try Jetpack Compose. Currently, I think we don't have much widgets. I know there's text and button. Other than that, you are free to experiment and see. But again, this is early stage, and we're happy to get your feedback and do something you will really like. With that, I'll show you the slide for which I promised for all the content in my talk. So for Dark Theme and gestures, there's a Google I/O talk. Similarly, for Jetpack Compose, the declarative UI patterns talk covers in much detail than I had in my slides. For foldables, you can go out and check build apps for foldable, multi-display, and large screen devices. And there are also 2 dev bytes for gestural navigation. And with that, I can answer any questions, and you can ping me anytime. My email is very easy to figure out. Just take my Twitter handle and at Google at the end. And sure, it's much better than my Twitter handle. And any questions? Did I go fast?
So I have a question about like this is Jetpack Compose. I know that right now it's in a very early stage, but yeah, how big is the chance that like it can be used outside of like standard stack? Like, okay, I'm like writing Kotlin, I'm using Android Studio, and I'm building everything with Gradle. Like, is there a chance that it can be easy pluggable to different build system?
Oh, very good. Very good question. So right now, probably not, but in future, probably yes. So right now you need a special version of Android Studio which has the Kotlin plugin, which will do the magic for you. But
compiler, it's also tuned to do this.
but you've seen the code. Basically, it's just one annotation. You can take the syntax, build your own compiler, and you can even generate the code you want for your platform. That's technically possible, but it's not there. So to answer you right now, no, you need a special version of Android Studio, and you need to use that in order to compile Jetpack components. Thanks. I guess that's it. And thank you very much for spending such a good day here.